Hello and a huge welcome to everyone joining us. This webinar we'll get independent insights from the team here at ECO. You see three of my colleagues joining me here. We're going to talk about the 42nd board meeting of the Green Climate Fund. It's my great pleasure to welcome everyone here today. Along with my colleagues, we have Jean-Baptiste Routier. We have Miodrag Gujic, hopefully got right, yep. And we have Patricia Cato. Pronouncing okay? Good, thank you. Great to see you. You can tell we call each other by first names, of course, here, so I get mixed up slightly. Well, for almost 25 years, our consultants have supported and guided our clients to achieve low carbon, climate resilient development. We do this through catalyzing systemic transformation to establish strong foundations for impact. And we've mobilized well over $6 billion from the Green Climate Fund in the past decade, and are keen to support increased access to climate finance for our GCF stakeholder community. If you've followed us over the past years, you'll know that our experts are keen to provide you with incisive analysis based on our strong experience with GCF project and program design. This allows us to provide you with insights you may seek to take that will help you to take the temperature of the GCF community, learn key developments that you might want to stay up to date with. If there's anything you'd like us to specifically cover in these debriefs, don't hesitate to reach out to us directly. We have an email address, inquiries@ecoltdgroup.com. We'll put that into the chat as well. And of course, connect with me and connect with the team on LinkedIn. So without further ado, let's get going. So our agenda today, we're going to talk about the GCF insight that we produced, and our writer, Patricia Cato, will be diving into this publication, where we focused on the role of stakeholder mobilization in transforming cities sustainably. And then we'll be unpacking the key issues that emerged from the recent 42nd board meeting that took place in Papua New Guinea, which we, as many of you others involved, were advised to participate online, not in presence. I should have mentioned that, well, after Patricia's talk, we'll be speaking with Miodrag about his experiences in mobilizing finance and in stakeholder engagement in cities. He's got a long experience there. So please do participate as we go along. Write your comments in the chat and submit your questions and comments, and we'll try to answer them as we go along. Right, so we're now going to focus in on our publication, the GCF Insight. Patricia, you're a writer here at ECO. You're based in Uganda, right? And so we may hear some great sounds around you of farm life, or of at least some chickens and such like. And tell us a bit about yourself.
Thank you, Grant. So yes, I joined ECO about 4 months ago. My background is actually in banking and financial services law. I obtained my law degree from the University of Leeds and worked for 5 years in the legal department of a bank here in Uganda. But for the past 3 years, I've been pursuing my passion for research, development, and writing. It started off with me undertaking a master's in international development at the University of SOAS, and the University of London, SOAS, sorry. And then after that, I was working part-time on an urban development project called the African Cities Research Consortium, and they were trying to see how to promote urban development within African cities. And I've been able to refine my research and writing skills through academic publishing, proposal development, and participating in writing fellowships. And that's ultimately brought me here to my role at ECO.
Fantastic. And it's really great to have you in the team and the insights you bring. And you've brought that into this GCF Insight publication on stakeholder engagement in cities. Mierdrag, you're a senior consultant here at ECO. I should say, Dr. Mierdrag, you've got a PhD that you did in energy efficiency, district heating, and renewable energy. So really, really topical to cities. Your PhD is from the University of Belgrade, isn't it? So tell us a bit about yourself. You worked with the city of Belgrade, didn't you?
Thanks, Grant. As a project manager in the city of Belgrade, I led diverse projects across the fields of energy, climate change, environment, and transport. And that role enabled me to coordinate multidisciplinary working groups involving various municipal departments and to integrate their strategies into comprehensive cross-sectoral city action plans. And I was a vital link between international organizations, city enterprises, and citizens.
Okay, I'm looking forward to talking a little bit about that experience a bit later. Just going to give a shout out to people that are joining us live for this session. I can see a comment from Santiago. Really great pleasure to have you here. Working from UNIDO. Welcome, Santiago. Also on the call, Dennis from Terra Thrive in Uganda. So perhaps not too far from where you are, Patricia. Really great to have you here. Please do feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. It's great to hear from people, and do ask questions as we go along. It's a great pleasure to have that. If you're joining us on LinkedIn or on YouTube, just put in your questions and we'll get them and we'll do our best to respond to them. Great. Well, over to you, Patricia. We're going to hear about the work that you've done on the GCF Insight. Yeah, lead us.
Thank you, Grant. So yes, firstly, I'll just briefly go through the methodology that we used this time round. So this GCF Insight took a different approach in terms of its data collection methods compared to previous editions. So rather than conducting a survey, as we've done in the past, this quarter we decided to hold in-depth interviews with various professionals in the industry, which we streamed on LinkedIn Live and YouTube for accessibility and transparency. In addition to this, we carried out a literature review, but we also drew from firsthand experience from colleagues within ECO. So Mierdrag, Muna, Isaac Neza, and Tamara provided a wealth of experience, seeing as they've been working as consultants within this field for a long time. And then finally, we included 4 case studies. So 2 were based on projects that ECO's consulting team had previously worked on, and then 2 others were based on noteworthy initiatives within the climate finance industry. So I encourage you to read the report and take a look at what those case studies are. So essentially, the report is structured around 4 main questions. The first question asks, what are cities and their role in climate change? The second question asks, how can we make cities more green? The third question asks, what are the financial challenges that cities face in becoming green? And then the fourth question asks, how can stakeholder mobilization help overcome these financial barriers and facilitate more green city initiatives? So to answer the first question, the report grapples with the conceptual definition of a city and examines the diverse actors and stakeholders who interact to make cities function. It also tracks how the role of cities in the climate agenda has evolved from being viewed primarily as sites of implementation, as my colleague Tamara put it in her interview, to being recognized as significant contributors in the global response to climate change. Then the second question is addressed in 2 parts. How can we make cities more green? The first part outlines the technical solutions that can help make cities greener. So these solutions are aligned with the GCF's guiding principles on what a green city actually is. They include sustainable water and waste management, sustainable transportation systems, energy efficiency, and nature-based solutions. And then the second part focuses on financing, primarily how GCF supports cities in accessing funds to implement these solutions, along with a brief look at what other available sources of finance are. Then the third section of the report dives into the barriers and the challenges that cities face in accessing finance. So these fall into three main categories. Firstly, there's institutional and technical capacity limitations on city administration side that may make it difficult for cities to design and attract funding for green city initiatives. Second, there's challenges to do with the availability and the accessibility of climate finance, which can limit what cities can realistically pursue. And then the third is political constraints. So these are constraints around decentralization and fiscal autonomy that cities face, and how these can hinder progress in terms of implementing green city initiatives. And then the fourth section of the report looks at how stakeholder mobilization can help to address these challenges. So one of the most powerful tools here is the role of collaborative networks, which was discussed in a bit more detail in our 28th GCF Insight, so the report preceding this one. But this one talks about how global networks such as C40 Cities, ICLAY, as well as programs like EBRD's Green Cities program, bring together city governments, technical experts, civil society, and private sector actors, and how this collaboration between all these stakeholders helps to facilitate capacity building, project preparation, and knowledge sharing. We also discuss how cities can learn from one another, and how this can help them ultimately navigate the complex climate finance landscape more effectively. So I encourage you to read the report and look into some of the insights that we found as we wrote it. You can find the QR code that will lead you to the report on the screen.
It's great to get an overview of it. I really appreciate that. I brought Miedrag in to the discussion now, and just to reflect on some of the things that have come out of that report, and to handle some questions, perhaps, if we get some. So please do feel free to connect with us like that. So, Miedrag, let me just tap into your experience here. Among the technical solutions that Patricia and the report mentioned that could make cities greener, where do you see the biggest opportunities for impact?
Thanks, Grant. While many technical climate solutions are broadly applicable, their relevance and implementation often depend on a city's specific context or regional characteristics. In Eastern European cities, including also Western Balkans, where ECO has supported development of several Green City Action Plans, or GCAPs, and other city action plans, the most pressing climate challenges are often linked to reliance on fossil fuels and resulting air pollution. Many cities in the region rank among the most polluted cities globally, and key mitigation measures include shutting down fossil fuel boiler rooms and connecting consumers to district heating systems, or to natural gas distributing networks, or to use of renewable energy sources. For instance, in Belgrade, where I'm based over 1,002 or 300 boiler rooms were shut down since the early 90s by the city's district heating company, And that action led to a significant reduction in air pollution, bringing some average pollutant levels below legal thresholds, though it's not enough, definitely. And improving energy efficiency in buildings has the greatest mitigation potential, it's clear. And this includes several most important measures. First one is thermal insulation upgrades, then modernization of energy systems in terms of replacement of installations for heating, cooling, air conditioners, and ventilation. Also, installation of new equipment, introduction of energy meters and installment of energy meters, and introduction of consumption-based billing tariffs in district heating systems, integration of renewable energy sources at the building level, and of course, deployment of digital energy solutions, which is now very necessary for all buildings, for all new buildings especially. Then I can continue with transport improvements, which is very important for urban areas and cities. Measures in transport include electrification of public and municipal fleet, expansion of charging infrastructure, so it means in terms of electric vehicles, promotion of cycling and e-scooters, construction of bike lanes, and use of cleaner fuels and improved traffic planning. Very important thing is to highlight introduction of urban metro systems, which is not easy at all. They have major impact. Notably, Belgrade is the largest city in Europe or in Eastern Europe without a metro, which is a very important fact, and contributing significantly to traffic congestion and poor air quality. I heard the official data is that Belgrade will have first metro line in 5 years, but I heard that it's very common excuse for some, especially Latin American cities, etc. So we'll see what will happen in 5 years. On the adaptation side, regional vulnerabilities vary. While cities in the global south face droughts and tropical conditions, Eastern European cities are increasingly affected by storms, floods, and heat waves, threatening infrastructure, buildings, and public health. So adaptation solutions can include flood defenses and embankments in urban zones, enhanced stormwater drainage infrastructure, and use of resilient building materials and design standards. My favorite area is cross-cutting solutions, such as green roofs and green walls. They can offer dual benefits. They improve building insulation and energy efficiency while enhancing urban climate resilience by reducing heat stress and improving comfort. And these scalable solutions hold great potential across cities.
Yeah, I find those really interesting as well. And in our report, we gave some case studies, including one in Malaysia, where the issue of heat and the urban heat island is a very interesting topic. The additional impact of a changing climate, higher levels of heat expected, that stakeholders in Malaysian cities were identifying as the major issue that they needed to deal with. What you said around Belgrade in terms of energy and heat and those initial types of technical solutions you talked about, I guess to some extent in developing countries in the global south, many equatorial and high temperature, it's an air conditioning or it's an urban heat island that is a major consumer of energy and of risk, compared to Belgrade, where there's a heating requirement, right?
Both.
Yeah, heating and cooling. Yeah, we were recently in your beautiful city as a team, and it was quite warm as well. So yeah, those cross-cutting solutions that bring, like green roofs, green walls, can bring moderation of temperature within cities. And of course, what you said around transport being a major aspect. Yeah, you worked for quite some time in city governance. What are, for you, Miodrag, the main capacity gaps that cities face when trying to access climate finance? What ideas do you have to address those?
Yes, cities in developing countries face multiple gaps and barriers in advancing climate action, and one of the key challenges is the lack of skilled staff and dedicated climate units. Low salaries in public sector often lead to departure of experienced professionals, moving to private sector or international institutions, organizations. Motivation is also limited as there are no incentives or rewards for extra effort. And to address capacity gaps, cities need ongoing training in climate finance, project preparation and monitoring, and study visits, learning and active participation in city networks, which is also very important, can also build institutional knowledge. Many cities lack the expertise to prepare bankable climate projects. A practical solution is to engage consultants or international financial institutions who can also engage consultants experienced with the fund procedures to support project design. Financial constraints remain a major issue. City budgets are not enough. They prioritize basic maintenance over long-term investments. So external funding from international donors, IFIs, or developed countries is often essential. Many cities also struggle to demonstrate creditworthiness. Improving financial reporting, debt management, and exploring tools like green bonds or PPP can help unlock additional financing. One more major gap is the lack of integration of climate goals into urban planning, and the climate targets must be embedded into development plans and investment pipelines. Policy reforms and decentralization are key steps in this direction. Weak of missing regulation, often due to limited capacity or political caution. There is one example. Introducing consumption-based billing tariffs in district heating system may be unpopular because of many affected people who would pay more with new tariffs, but it is necessary for long-term efficiency and equity. Public communication and transparent dialogue are critical in such cases. And in the end, reliable local climate data is often missing or fragmented, and some multi-sectoral working groups can improve data sharing and coordination. Essentially, better collaboration among city departments, organizations, public enterprises, national institutions, and international partners is essential for integrated climate planning, and partnership with the development banks, donors, and NGOs can help cities access funding, technical support, and best practices.
Great. So building on that, really, in terms of partnerships, cities have to negotiate or collaborate with national climate bodies. They could be, if they're accessing the Green Climate Fund, it would be the NDA. How can cities more effectively work on that collaboration with those type of bodies to access funds like the Green Climate Fund?
Well, cities in developing countries often face significant barriers to directly accessing climate finance. I mentioned some reasons, and especially from large international sources like GCF, Green Climate Fund, and GEF, and others. However, with a good strategy, cities can more effectively negotiate, align, and collaborate with national climate change bodies to unlock financing. One activity, initial activity, is to understand the NDA's role and priorities. NDA is a key interface with the GCF, and cities should map national climate finance landscape, identify strategic entry points, and formally engage the NDA to present their local city priorities and project ideas. There, it's very important to align city projects with national strategies. Projects should clearly support national plans like NDCs, NAPs and NECPs, National Adaptation Plans, and National Energy and Climate Plans. And it's key to align local project proposals with national goals using national indicators and emphasizing core benefits like resilience, job creation, emissions reduction, or gender equality. It's very important since cities can't apply directly to the GCF, partnering with accredited entity is essential. So it's important to identify potential accredited entity early to prepare a concept note and request the NDA's endorsement for inclusion in the national GCF portfolio. Also, projects very often are not fundable because GCF technically robust and financially viable proposals. Many city-level projects need additional preparation to become investment ready because they are not aligned very often in initial stage, and that may require technical assistance or pre-feasibility support. And in the end, networking between cities is very important. When cities coordinate and present shared priorities, national governments are more likely to respond.
Yeah, so they've got to work well, build trust with those national bodies, right? And what, in your experience, what strategies work in order to build that type of trust and collaboration between municipalities and national ministries?
Yeah, building trust and alignment between municipalities and national ministries in developing countries, it's very important to highlight in developing countries where institutions are not so strong. Requires a combination of formal coordination and informal relationship building. First activity can be establishment of clear coordination mechanism. So governments should create joint bodies or working groups that include city and national representatives supported by memorandum of understanding or framework agreement, outlining goals, timelines, and responsibilities. Then fostering personal relationship. In many developing countries, informal networks are as important or more important than formal structures. From my own experience working in the city administration, personal trust and informal engagement often played a critical role in bridging institutional gaps. Trust is often undermined by conflicting assumptions or missing information, so it's needed to provide joint databases with shared evidence base and improve collaboration. So data should be clear and available for all included stakeholders. Starting with pilot projects can also help test how national climate policies work in local contexts, and successful examples can then be replicated in other cities or in a wider region. And in the end, investment in local capacity is also essential. Ongoing training, tools, and technical support from national level to the city level can empower local stakeholders and ensure long-term impact.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you very much. Those are important factors to bear in mind in trying to build that type of trust. Can you share an example of where that mobilization and engagement of stakeholders clearly helped to overcome financing or perhaps implementation barriers?
Thanks, Grant, for this question. Although it's not very modest, but it was true, so I will share it with you. And one of the most successful projects I've been involved was the development of Green City Action Plan and Sustainable Energy and Climate Action Plan, actually GCAP and CCAP for the city of Belgrade. At the beginning, I was the city's focal point on behalf of the city, coordinating inception report and some early project activities. But after my departure from the city administration to UNEP, after several months, the consulting team, where ECO was one of 3 members, Mott MacDonald, ECO, and Ricardo, continued work on development of GCAP and CCAP for the EBRD. A few months later, the team identified a gap in stakeholder engagement due to absence of someone with in-depth knowledge of Belgrade's institutional landscape. And I was invited by the consulting team to join the team as a policy and institutional expert. And we reactivated, it was my first initial idea, reactivation of existing working group. And this proved essential. City enterprises began contributing data and feedback, while international partners shared the relevant best practices. The point was, my experience of 16 years within the city before that enabled me to identify and mobilize key individuals across departments and city enterprises. And that personal connection built trust, boosted motivation, and significantly improved collaboration. GCAP and CCAP were successfully completed and adopted by the city parliament. So the key takeaway from this experience is the vital role of local experts and stakeholders who understand the system, have strong networks, and are committed to building trust. And as a conclusion, I can say what I already said somehow. In developing countries where institutional capacity may still be evolving, personal engagement makes the difference between failure and success.
Yeah, thank you very much, Miodrag. I think it's always important to emphasize that the personal engagement, the connections that one has, almost in any environment, well, some may have more formal processes and structures. It's the connections between people that ultimately allow one to make the difference and to move forward effectively. It's really good that you can emphasize that. We're going to move now and take a little bit of a pivot to talk about the Green Climate Fund, but Miodrag, you'll be here still through the webinar. So if people have questions related to this work and to our GCF Insight, Patricia's also here on the call. We are really happy to take those questions. We are getting a few questions and fascinating questions that we'll definitely talk about. Thank you very much, Fitzroy. I see Samir here. Samir from Palestine NDA is here. Warm welcome to you. Justine, thank you very much. Also joining from Uganda. We have a good turnout from Uganda in the chat comments. And Alexander Durkovic, who I guess, Miodrag, you must know from Belgrade as well. So thank you, everyone engaging in the comments there. Do ask questions. What I want to do now is to welcome Jean-Baptiste onto the call. And Jean-Baptiste, you and I are going to talk about this latest board meeting. Part of that is going to cover this new accreditation framework. Fitzroy, your question we'll come to at that time, because the GCF have now approved a brand new accreditation framework, and it is different. So there's a lot that is new, a lot that is different, a lot that we don't know, but we can hypothesize on that. We also want to talk about some of the projects that were approved. I guess it's safe to say, Jean-Baptiste, it was quite an eventful board meeting in terms of in terms of the projects approved, because they weren't all approved. Quite painful, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's always something surprising, because when you know the time spent to prepare project full proposal and submit it to the fund, it's a year, at least a year effort. So it's a lot of exchanges between the country partners, between the GCF team providing support. So it's something unusual we observed. So 2 projects were actually deferred. So one in Oman, and it's very interesting, to spend some time to talk about that project, because it's we will cover it later.
In just a moment. Even before that, right at the start of the discussions of projects, the GCF announced that one of the projects was not going to be discussed during the meeting. And this one is the Prosperity Growth Fund project. It's a private sector fund that was following this project-specific accreditation process. So they're not an accredited entity, but they're taking it forward. What's notable about that is that it went to board meeting 41. So this isn't the first time it appeared. It was the second time it appeared. And right at the start, the GCF announced that the co-chairs stated that this fund would not be open for consideration during the board meeting. The decision was made because, in their words, an anonymous position was conveyed by the developing country constituency regarding the proposal to be deferred. And this, they wanted additional time to engage on key aspects of the proposal, to ensure due diligence carried out, fully aligns with country priorities. But this is the second board meeting, right? As you said, Jean-Baptiste, is a lot of work goes into putting together something like this.
Yeah, and something that is usually missing is the connection with the country. When you are developing multi-country projects, we've observed that at ECHO is the fact that a lot of effort is developed or is used for writing the document, but less effort is spent on the dialogue with the country, I mean, with the focal points, with the government, with the alignment, with the strategical document of the country. And for that project, we knew of that issue, and that the project was really lacking this kind of element. So it's difficult to redo the discussion with all the country at the end, because you already done all the design, and it's a very peculiar situation for prosperity regarding that aspect. And
we find it particularly difficult for private sector parties because they're not used to that consultation. They're not used to that engagement and getting into the dialogue and the discussion. Not to mention that, in fact, there can be, and certainly in some countries, quite some skepticism about projects. So let's just quickly look, Jean-Baptiste, at the overall portfolio of what was actually went into the board. I think this excludes the Prosperity Project. There were 19 funding proposals representing funding request of 1.3 billion. And this is quite notable. They don't normally have 19 projects. That's quite a large number. Total value, including the co-financing, of 3.9 billion. And also notable first single country projects. And you started by talking about the two deferred projects. Shall we talk about those now? There's this Oman one and also the ADB one.
So the Oman project, So as I was saying just before, Grant, early warning system is something that it's a kind of project we are regularly seeing in the GCF. So it's something. It's a type of project really needed. So it's usually a national project with a huge impact for the country in terms of adaptation and anticipation. And in the case of UNIDO, some very specific elements come from the board. That first. So it's the first project of UNIDO as an accredited entity, and it was raised by the board that UNIDO had no experience in early warning systems. So it was first something important also to how to justify that role. The second aspect, grant, was the fact that it's a grant request, full grant request, and the design of this early warning system opens the possibility of setting service fees. So there is a kind of inconsistency between asking for a full grant and, in the same time, being able to receive service fees. So at least it would have been interested in that kind of design to consider another financing options along with the grant to open that to align the fact that the project is generating money. And the board also raised two last important elements is the fact that in the narrative of the full proposal, the document was not referring to the last up-to-date information regarding the actual early warning system progress in Oman. So I think it's more like maybe a phasing of being able to integrate the last changes in the document with the stress of being ready for the board. But also the remarks from the board said that some new financial reconfiguration were made at the last minute, and new additional elements were added to the project. So it was also a bit criticized by the board that those changes were made at the last moment.
Yeah. Complicated discussion there, because on the one hand, we like to see projects that generate revenue. It's got a chance of ongoing existence. And yet the board really did jump on this project in terms of it being entirely grant funded. Now, at the moment, UNIDO can only propose grant funded projects, right? Because that's yeah. Also a really unique project because it was the first project in Oman and the first one from UNIDO. So it's quite dramatic there that happened. And what can we learn from it? One is be very careful when there are potential income sources. We've seen this in other projects as well. I can remember one very well in Guatemala, where the accredited entity didn't have potential for reflows, for giving loans or things like that. But it was considered, this was a farmer's project, it was considered that there was income generated and that there needed to be something more than a pure grant instrument that is at work there. And particularly the country not being a least developed country, but more of an emerging market. Now, that's one thing we can learn from this. The other project was interesting. It was from ADB, and it was about drinking water in the Pacific. Do you want to say some comments on that?
Yeah. So, and it's also something I wanted to add on the UNIDO project. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. It's because we must recognize that there is not enough project in Middle East area funded by the GCF. So it's important to recognize the fact that there is not enough project, but some project might be also deferred. So it's not a unique reason to approve all project because there is no enough project. So in the other case, in the case of ADB projects, we know also that access to water, to clean water in highlands is a key element. But in that particular project, here the problem was the fact that the technology that was proposed for the project was first an untested technology, and then also the price of that technology and the price of the water for the end user was probably higher than the actual situation. So making so the overall design is not very secured in terms of long-term impact of that solution, and the sustainability, the fluctuation of price, and how the most vulnerable people would still have access to it at a cheap price of the water. So that was also very so it's an interesting part to correctly try to find innovation, but to be sure that that innovation might have a reality, and the price at the end will be sustainable for the country and for the end user paying for it.
Yeah, there was some skepticism, I guess, partly because of the private sector water utility structure within this project as well. In any case, so they deferred these two projects. That means they'll probably come back at future board meetings, the next one, or whenever those issues really have been addressed.
Exactly.
A number of the projects, there were some big debates around them, more detail about it. We've listed two of those here. Another ADB project, which was the India Green Financing Facility. And the other one was a green bond project from the EIB. So if there's a pattern there in terms of debate, these are two international regional IFIs that are proposing them.
Yep. So we can find a kind of same backbone or same issue regarding those two projects is the fact that so in the case of the Indian Green Facility, there is the clarity for the result area and of the fund, of the facility, and how it will be defined, and how the project will be selected in the future was not fairly clear. And the board also raised some concern about the ITAP contribution, moving from normally the more technical advice to more political sphere and political area. So that was not really acknowledged correctly. So yes, board were mainly saying that ITAP should stick to the technical advice and not move to that sphere. So they had some intense discussion about that project, but it was approved at the end. Regarding EIB project, here is at the same for an international accredited entity where you have a lot of countries involved in that project, with some concern about ownership of the country, how the project is really fitting with the needs of the country. How to correctly demonstrate the ownership now and in the future of the country regarding that green bond initiative. And also, the board raised some concern about the fact that the bond system or the bonds way of working maybe will concentrate projects with a higher income return, and those projects might not be directly related to climate need in some countries. So maybe some country with higher revenue, other opportunities will be selected first, and countries with with a more difficult context and high need in terms of climate investment will be regarded at the end. So that was kind of discussion about that international project.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that is always raised by the board. Whenever there is a financing facility, there are questions about, well, we don't know exactly what the projects are that are going to be approved. And that was a part of the challenge for this India Green Finance Facility one. And with the EIB Green Bond one, also some skepticism about that. As you rightly said, this sort of, in a way, conflict of interest between trying to get greater return versus greater impact aspect. But there's always board skepticism, I think, about projects where the individual, what actually gets financed, is not specified in detail. It's just there's a facility, and that's the way facilities work. They have criteria and they deliver. But there are always questions raised by the board on that, and quite some debate.
No, you're right. And the size of those projects, considering a lot of countries make it difficult, and they are not able to be so precise per country because they try to cover so many countries. So it's exactly something we are discovering in other project development.
Yeah. Now there's a project we haven't listed on the slide that I guess you and I are both itching to talk about. Why it's interesting is that it's a private sector project, but unlike, at least for me, I've never seen one like that at the board before. And it's both positive, and I have some questions around it. Interestingly, the board did not seem to raise these same issues. So they appeared to be happy to approve this loan for a private sector company, for a single private sector company, without being concerned as much about exactly how it's going to be used and what it's going to be used for. At least that's my impression. How do you see that, Jean-Baptiste? We better say what the project is so that we bring people up to speed on that.
Yeah. So it's a project focusing specifically on a green fertilizer plant. So it's in Latin America, in Paraguay. So it's a huge project. It's the biggest fertilizer plant in Latin America. And here we are talking about an investment of more than 600 $600 million of dollar,
Mhm.
US dollar. And so the GCF will participate with 50 million. It's a subordinated loan. So I think several elements make it very particular. The fact that it's the biggest plant, so it's the impact. I think it's really significant and could lead to other impact. So when we know what GCF is trying to do, the paradigm shift, I think we have here something that could be like a flagship in the region. So I think that's one of the reasons for such project. And then the fund raised some concern about it, but it's mainly very practical concerns, like, for example, regarding the policy sector, how, because it's a long-term project, how to secure the policy aspects, the regularities, the legal environment, to be sure that during the lifetime of the project, 25 years, nobody will put at risk the project. So tax policy, carbon pricing, because a carbon framework is integrated in it. Also, there was some concern about the final production cost and the customer acceptance of this kind of product. So how it will be accepted by the public, customers, and what will be the sales challenges of that project and how it could be replicated in the future. There is also some concern about the technology. Why choose green hydrogen over more popular approaches? Yeah, so they had some concern, but not like the same one as we saw for EIB, and that's interesting, really. And I think my guess is really it's something very transformative. Like if you have such project developed in that region, it could lead the way for other project, other replication. And I remember, so if I may, just in 1 minute, a project we evaluated for mitigation action facility. I think it was in Central America, of a similar approach on a smaller plant. And it was really interesting because the project was really well designed, a bit different from what mitigation action facility is financing usually. And we noted that MAF was really interested by that project. And I think the replicability of this kind of initiative was a big part of the interest. And this is my guess for that one.
Yeah. Okay. So if you want to look up that project, do have a look at it. It's FP277. And they're going to work with available hydropower availability to produce green hydrogen, green ammonia, and green calcium ammonium nitrate fertilizer, right? So it's an industrial project, right? So we've got to talk about the accreditation framework. I'm just conscious of the time that is there. There's now a new accreditation framework. Do you want to run us through it? Shall I give the outline?
Yeah, I can go quickly. Maybe I will highlight the main elements of that accreditation framework.
I want to give time for this question from Fitzroy that he put in really early on. So yeah, give us the high level insight.
Yeah. So first, I think the important part is the fact that there is no longer, accreditation levels linked to the amount of money you are able to mobilize. So this will be changed, and it will be evaluated against each project you're proposing, and based on your track.
Yeah. Sorry, interrupting you, Jean-Baptiste. Also interesting there is that they've delinked the financial instrument as well. So it's the size is not specified in accreditation, nor are the financial instruments available. And maybe that's an opening for UNIDO under this new framework, that they could put forward something which has got some reflow mechanism in it.
Yeah,
anyway,
right.
Carry on.
Yeah, no, you're right. For UNIDO, that might be the exit strategy. Yeah, you're right. So just to raise that accreditation framework will start from the next board meeting. So B40, no, B43, B43.
Yeah, the day after B43, it kicks in. to operation.
So also now I think I should raise that there is now a possibility for self-nomination by non-governmental DAE, so that's important. You just need a letter of support now, and it will be the same for PPF. So it's also a relief, so make a simplification approach. An important aspect also is suppression of the reaccreditation phase. So it will also simplify aspects. And so the usual monitoring and accountability monitoring will be still used by the GCF, but the 5 years reaccreditation process is suppressed. And the last element, so we have to see, is legal arrangement. It should be streamlined. We never know exactly what does it mean from GCF, but at least trying to reduce some of the burdens of the EMA or other legal documents. So we have to see exactly what will happen there. But there is what we say an idea of trying to make it to simplify it, and we know that it's usually very hard and could delay a lot disbursement or start of the project. So I think that's something we have to see, but it's a good opportunities for everyone there.
Yeah, quite a fascinating change. Firstly, this the delinking side of it, and essentially that at the time of project review, they will look at the track record of the accredited entity to see whether they can give a solid argument of the amount of funding that is being requested and the financial instrument. I've got a bit of concern there that, whoa, there's even more that needs to be addressed at the funding proposal stage and in those stages, because they've got to do an assessment now of the accredited entity's capacity to handle the funds, not at accreditation, but at project proposal submission. Certainly, they're going to prioritize countries. The self-nomination was debated at the board a bit by board members because they felt there was a real issue there around country ownership, and rightly so, and some wording was changed. No more reaccreditation. Thank goodness, really. It seemed like a bit of a soulless, purposeless type of process that went through. And these legal arrangements, they say there's like standard conditions, and then the accredited entity can apply its own policies, but only where there are gaps the board needs to approve. It's an interesting type of mix. Now, I wonder what you think in terms of this comment, which has come in from Fitzroy. I'm going to put it on the screen. Here we go. And he has written, how does the GCF plan to facilitate the accreditation of national direct access entities in the Caribbean? We found the process quite challenging. The key problem is impersonal communication from the accreditation panel. I've heard that before, Fitzroy, in terms of the interaction with the panel. Interestingly, at this board, there were two direct access entities in the approved, one in St. Lucia, one in Belize, direct access entities that were accredited at this last board meeting. But yeah, how does that process work now with a new accreditation framework? There's going to be 2 periods in which accreditation applications will be accepted. And the type of process should be much, much quicker. It's all around fit for purpose, right? Do you have any thoughts on this, Jean-Baptiste? Bearing in mind we've got to bring things to a close now. But,
no. I will be very sure that some an element coming from the board meeting is so there is 2 windows now for that. It will be streamlined, and also the fact that the fund will increase direct access to readiness program also. So the readiness could be also a tool to quickly accelerate the accreditation process and make it easier and faster. So you should also look to that part where the GCF will try to make a readiness program more accessible and to design it specifically for that purpose. In a nutshell.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Yeah, it is difficult. It's the interaction with the secretariat. This new process, Fitzroy puts in 2 windows of 2 months each year. So in a year, perhaps after 4 months, there'll be a 2-month window for accreditation proposals, and then another 2 months. And they're only looking at fit for purpose, not at actual project size, capacity, and type of financial instrument. So theoretically, that goes quicker. Hopefully that helps a little bit. And very last little question to squeeze in, Nalan has asked, is there an update related to regional presence? We do know that that's on the agenda for 2025. They're going to be talking about where to situate regional offices even. I saw that in the board, the work plan for the board that was presented. So if you have a look there, Nalan, at that, then you can see that that's in their plans. And I guess at the next board meeting, that's going to be a major point of discussion. All right, well, thank you very much. If you've still got questions, please do put them in the chat. We will come to them. We'll give you answers there on LinkedIn or on YouTube, wherever you want to put your questions. Really appreciate it. A big thanks to Patricia for leading us through the GCF Insight, to Miedrag for his inputs. Jean-Baptiste, big thank you to you. Really appreciate all of your inputs and insights. And then behind the scenes, there are many, many people that are making this work. Mariella has been helping switch our different scenes and cameras and making sure that that all worked. Thank you so much. And putting together all the marketing and promotion for this. You and your team have done a great job bringing that all forward. So I guess it only remains for me to say, please do connect with us. We are very keen to keep the connection. We want to interact with you. You can write to us. You can connect to us on LinkedIn, to the companies, to the individuals here. So please do to get in touch. Have a look at our website. It's www.ecoltdgroup.com. And under Insights, you'll be able to download all previous GCF Insight editions, including this current 29th publication that Patricia and Miedrag discussed. Do let us know, get in touch, and we look forward to seeing you at the next webinar after the next board meeting, or perhaps sooner. It'd be a privilege to speak with you and to work with you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.